Hi everyone, welcome back to LYFE Talks. Today we have Kayli Jamieson sharing her academic journey as well as motivational and inspirational tips on how she balances all of her various commitments while maintaining a high level of self-care. A fun fact about Kayli is that she's a musical performer, which she will go into more depth about in her talk.
Hello SFU fam, I'm Kayli and today I'll be talking to you about my journey throughout my many years at SFU. I'll be discussing the academic and social hurdles and achievements I've overcome, and hopefully you can pick up some tips for productivity levels that help you manage your own journey at SFU. Whether it be 4 years, 6 years, undetermined, it's totally normal. So first off, I want to give a little introduction about myself. I'm a fourth year communications major, also a business minor, and also have a general criminology certificate. So yeah, dabbled in a few faculties there. I'm also the current co-president of SFU Peak Frequency, one of the largest music clubs on campus. There'll be more on that later. And also an ENFJ personality type, in case it helps you figure out anything about me. Some of my hobbies include singing and playing ukulele, guitar, and I've been starting a YouTube channel like what everyone else did during quarantine. So if you want to see my covers, then there's that. And I also, if it's not obvious enough, love to read. And on that note, both my part-time jobs also relate to books. I work at Birmingham Public Library and Indigo Bookstore. So if you ever want to chat about book recommendations, you can hit me up, I'm your girl. I also briefly worked for SFU's temporary job pool for students. I think it's a fantastic opportunity on campus, as many of the assignments give you administrative experience that can provide you valuable skills that'll be useful down the line. So it's a good stepping stone job, just check it out. But back to the main overarching point of this video, what I want you guys to take away is that self-growth in university is normal, and this is a time where you're really developing and understanding who you are as a person, your interests, and what you want in your life down the line. And I think that this process in university is one of the most valuable things you can take away, other than just a fancy piece of paper that has your degree on it. And more people need to realize that this is what you're really learning in university: time management skills and broadening your global perspective. And these are things that help you think critically about the world around you, and also about improving your own self. So let's go way back to my first semester at SFU, fall 2016. It was actually a very low time in my life, and most of my best friends were actually going to UBC. So I felt like I was grappling with all these personal events that had happened to me, as well as trying to transition into university, while simultaneously trying to figure out who I am as a person and how I'm going to get through these next 4 to 5 years alive. So in addition to these concerns, I was also worried about what I would end up majoring in. And initially, my idea was I would get a joint major in English and communications. But when I took the first 100 levels for communications, I didn't actually like them, ironically. And I had taken criminology courses as an elective. So I was like, okay, let's just ditch this plan, let's just go major straight into criminology. So that, along with a business minor, is what took up my first few years at SFU. And then I decided, after I finished all the lower division requirements for criminology, that actually, maybe communications would be more useful to me than I may realize. And I ended up just jumping ship and going back to communications. So as a result of that, I have a general criminology certificate that I can use. So the dilemma with that is that I became one of those select people that change their major halfway through university. And there's a lot of worries and anxieties attached with that. But it ended up being one of the best decisions I actually ever made, because I wanted a degree that I'd be fully satisfied and proud of. There's nothing wrong with criminology. I definitely learned a lot about the law and the legal system in Canada. But I didn't know realistically what I was going to do with it when I finished SFU. And I'm investing so much time, effort, and money into these next years. It may as well be something that I'm very passionate about and I can actually be proud of at the end of the day. That's going to lead me to future prospects in my life. So communications ended up being that for me when I gave it another chance. And I'm so thankful that I did. So as I eventually immersed myself more and more into communication studies, I started understanding what I really want out of this in the future. And now I plan to pursue graduate school and one day be a professor in this field. So yeah, it is a big ambition, but this didn't happen overnight. Over the run of many courses, I discovered that I really enjoy simplifying concepts and unpacking them and teaching them to my classmates and people around me for them to understand. And this really came to light when I'd be doing class presentations. And I just felt so alive, doing public speaking and helping the class understand a concept. And soon enough, I was buying more and more books related to the field of communications and media studies, building my nonfiction collection. And this over time helped me hone even further on the subcategories of communication. So for example, network activism, political economy communication, issues in new media and technology, journalism, media ownership. This is just so much. And soon opportunities rose up that I wanted to take part in, like Communications Undergrad Conference and SFU Public Square's Innovations and Research event. And the main point of all of this is that finding a major that suits you was going to stem back from your intrinsic motivation. So this means it's something that you're internally motivated to complete because you're doing it to satisfy yourself. So intrinsic motivation is something I consider to be a green flag when you're looking at different majors and trying to decide what's best for you in the future. And I also want to emphasize here that it's also okay to not know what you want to do in your life. And many people change their minds multiple times. You don't have to stick with one career your entire life and just move towards that in a linear process. Many people change their minds even after they've already done their LSAT or passed the bar or decide to go into nursing and then switch back. It's okay to change. And I know people that decide on communications as it's a field broad enough to encompass different options when they're moving on to career choices in the future. So this could include PR or marketing, journalism, looking at cultural or public policy. The options are quite broad in this major specifically. But to conclude that segment, just continue to remember to look for those green flags, and it's okay to change your mind and not always have it together all the time. Another important aspect of university life is getting involved. And at SFU, a great way of getting involved is through student clubs. Now, I think SFU has a lot of great clubs that carry different types of niches, whether it be through video games, food, a love for Korean dramas, or even music. And music is a niche that I decided to settle in, and I found SFU Peak Frequency that way. They were at clubs days and they had the whole booth set up and people were playing musical instruments, so naturally I was drawn to that. And I signed up to be an exec right away. Now, many people don't have to be involved to that extent, but in this case, I got to learn a lot more about the ins and outs of SFU and how clubs work this way. Now, my exec team is really like my family at this point, and I started off helping run the social media, then over time stepped up to be their VP, and now I'm co-president with my best friends. And I really have not regretted anything, and I'm so glad I did sign up and be involved in the way that I am. Now, the biggest and most stressful project I've ever put on is SFU's Got Talent. And this wasn't always done through Peak Frequency, but it is an annual event that we put on in the spring semester where we invite student performers to audition and present themselves as a talent show. They can win prize money and there's judges, and it's a really fun time. But way before this, I think the SFSS used to be the ones to put this on, and it kind of just died out. So I said to Jeffrey one day, who was the president of Peak Frequency at the time, I was like, yo, Jeff, we should have a talent show. That's what SFU's missing. He's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't you go bring that up and propose it to the SFSS? And what I didn't realize was that involving myself into that proposal would create all these burdens upon me to carry on the event. But honestly, it was really rewarding at the end of the day to involve my whole exec team and all our blood, sweat, and literal tears into putting on this show. So I want to give a shout out to Gordon and to Jeffrey for helping to pioneer this idea and see it come to fruition. So now hopefully the legacy can continue and that generations of SFU students can enjoy this talent show for years to come. So on the topic of friendship. Now, funnily enough, some of the closest friends I've ever made at SFU were people I literally sat next to in the first day of class in tutorial. We would end up chatting, and then next thing you know, they're just someone you see around campus and start hanging out with. And you start sharing all your worries, stresses, and fears with them, and that's how you bond. Another thing I realized in first year especially is that everyone was in the same place as me. We're all anxious, nervous, excited maybe, but also scared. We're scared of being alone and isolated in a new journey at SFU. Since we're therefore hungry and open to socialization, which made opening up to each other and reaching out to new people a lot easier in comparison with like high school. And as you make these friendships, you would grow alongside each other as you start in this new chapter in your lives. And also, the more involved you get at SFU, the more people you see around the hallways, the more comfortable you get striking up conversations. In first year, I was also developing photography as a hobby, and people were soon asking me to take outfit pictures for them, LinkedIn profile pictures, headshots for Facebook, you name it. And as I was learning Lightroom and editing and all these things, I was also learning more about my own interests once again. And I became very involved in Vancouver Streetwear Community, a Facebook group. And 2 years later, I became like a moderator for the group. So thanks to the experience of my moderating of that group, I was able to become a moderator for SFU Must Knows for Courses, another Facebook group. But this shows that expanding your social circles really comes from you taking that step to put yourself out there first. So you may wonder how the heck I have the time to do 2 part-time jobs, be a co-president, be a full-time student, and maintain a social life. Well, I have 3 main points for how you can manage this balancing act. So number 1 for me is maximizing the little moments of time. If I want to catch up on my YouTube subscriptions, I actually watch while eating my meals. If I want to find time to read, I do a lot while on the SkyTrain or on transit. And also try to minimize the amount of time that I spend scrolling or doom scrolling on social media and doing nothing per se. And point number 2 are lists. I love lists, especially that satisfying feeling when you're checking off something you completed. It gives me that moment of like self-gratification. It also validates myself by being like, yes, I finished this, I did something, I was productive. So yes, I definitely glorify lists a lot, but in actuality, they do help with productivity as well as prioritizing what you need to do first. And if you're going through one of those like stressful moments of crisis where everything is coming down upon you, everything is due at the same time, the list helps you organize those thoughts clearly and helps you breathe and be realistic about what you can complete. And point number 3, lastly, is how I use my planners. So I tend to buy like a really small portable one I can throw in my bag, and I only use the monthly function. So this helps me give a broad overview of everything that's going to be happening that month. If I have something due like weekly basis, like readings, then I'll put that in my list to check off. But this way I can like see if I have like an assignment due, but I have like an 8-hour shift the day before it, and I can see what other times there are during the month so I can complete that assignment before it's due. A really common question that many students have, and especially my friends had in first year, was how can we be productive? And how can we find motivation? Well, personally, for me, I am someone that needs to feel like they're being productive every second of the day, or else I'll be lying on the ground, drowning in my feelings with a Daniel Caesar song. I think some universal advice I can provide for that is to prioritize the tasks you want to get done today. And once they are completed, allow yourself to be proud of what you've completed. Allow that gratification. Multitasking is also very good, and also always planning ahead. Don't be that kid that starts doing their paper the night before it's due. You will truly and sincerely regret it. So what I like to do if I see the paper is due like a month from now, I'll start reading like some relevant books on the SkyTrain that I can use as a source and like highlighting like the appropriate sections for it. Lastly, be intentional about making time for yourself. So you're absolutely allowed to take breaks, of course. Just make sure you're being mindful about it, not spending an hour playing Fortnite or watching YouTube, which I am guilty of sometimes. It's also important to make sure you're staying healthy and working out when you can. Gotta stimulate them brain cells, and it's good for your skin. But if you're not making time for yourself to have fun, then your life's gonna be too routine and boring. You'll become a compartmentalized person, and nobody likes that. University is a time for you to strengthen your self-awareness of who you are in the world and your identity. It also provides opportunities for you to expand your social circles and really get yourself out there and involved. And also, make sure to be proud of your accomplishments. Give yourself time to be proud of yourself, reflect upon your hard work and achievements. And lastly, this isn't high school in a very good way. You have the flexibility and lots of options to choose from when it comes to life paths, friendships, and a future career. So I'll leave you those tidbits and I hope you got something out of it. And thanks for watching me be awkward on video. And make sure to like SFU Peak Frequency on Facebook. And if you want to stay updated with me, follow me on Twitter, Wandering Kayli. 'Cause you're right.